Hi, everyone. This is Mike again with episode 12 of Getting Everyone Moving, sponsored by Palms and Pines Parasports. And today we have Doug Garner from the University of Texas. Hey, Doug.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's start off by, can you tell us, how did you become involved in the adaptive sport field?
Good question. My previous life, I was a gymnastics and cheerleading coach. And my wife and I had a son in 1986 who was born with spina bifida. And we were in Arkansas at the time. And as he got older, even though we're in the children's fitness business, we never really thought about what's he going to do. I think we just kind of assumed. And then we were finding out there really was not much out there. So we started a junior program, adaptive sports program in Arkansas, worked with Cheryl Vines with the Arkansas Spinal Cord Commission, worked with Coach Vines, getting a basketball team up and running, and it grew from there.
But you're one of the very few, university wheelchair basketball coaches in the country. I mean, how did that come about?
So Coach Hayes started looking at some of our players to recruit some of our athletes, and I got to know him. He would come to Arkansas a lot and bring the UTA team, and they would play with the Rolling Razorbacks, and Casa would come in, and Nashville would come in. So I got to know him that way. And then he was recruiting my son to come and play. And along the way, kind of we got our business to the point where we wanted to sell it. And I had talked with Coach about being like an assistant. I said, Coach, you're the only team in the division that doesn't have an assistant coach. We're going to sell our business. I'll come up and be your assistant coach. And he was a very proud guy. He said, I can't pay you. I said, okay. We worked it out. So he supported me in getting my second master's degree. It's the only way he would do it. So I said, okay, what if I go back to school? Because I had a master's in behavioral science. And he was like, okay. So we did. I moved in January 1 of 2007. In 2008, Coach went in the hospital and passed away, and I applied for the position.
You got it. How do we, given that there are very few collegiate adaptive athletic programs, how do we get more programs going, especially for all those, youth who play wheelchair basketball or other sports their whole life, and then, there's very few choices to go to college.
Well, I think we're doing a good job of haphazardly starting programs in campus rec and in sport clubs and in disability studies and disability programs, but we need, and it is starting, there are things that are going on with the USOPC and NCAA. For it to really happen, we need to find an effective way to communicate to colleges and universities that they need to be supporting adapted athletic programs. It's going to have to start on that side, because if you start on the sport club side, it's great and it gets a foot in the door. But then you get to the point where, oh, well, we got to travel to Arizona, to Wisconsin, to Pennsylvania. And it creates an uneven playing field where you have programs who have scholarship budgets, you have programs who have no budgets, you have programs who have good travel budgets. So we need to be addressing it from the institutional side.
How do you go about recruiting your players? I mean, you've had some international players as well, but how does that work?
Well, we have the advantage of being around a long time. So we have alumni around the world. We have alumni who are playing in Europe. We have alumni who um, came here from around the world and have gone home, and they're engineers and they're teachers, and they all recruit. The program has a pretty good reputation, and we have some pretty good support from the university for scholarships and support of the program. So all those things kind of give us a good advantage in recruiting. So I reach out every now and then, but mostly a lot of people come to me.
And why University of Texas? I mean, why did the university see fit to actually start, an adaptive sports program? I mean, I know in Tucson in Arizona, I mean, there's a lot of athletes there, but what happened in your area that made it possible?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Coach Hayes um, completed his junior college degree in this area and was president of the student body there. And their president said, you need to go to UTA. At the time, UTA was just starting on that road of providing accommodations for students with disabilities. So Coach Hayes came here. He got his degree in history because it was the only accessible building on campus. So this is 1974. And when he graduated, they were impressed enough with him. And this is about when 504 was being passed and instituted, and they hired him as the first director of students with disabilities in 1976. So he was a big proponent of college is the great equalizer, and we need to have structures in place to support students with disabilities. And that was his whole thing: be independent, buy a house, get a job, be more of a participant in society than the guy in the chair. And so he started that. As things evolved, he really believed in exercise for people with disabilities because statistics are so bad health-wise for that population. And that evolved into a wheelchair basketball team. And, this was something that wasn't happening a lot at the time. So it was unique, and it got a lot of attention and a lot of support from the university. It grew from there until 1989, when the university well, in 1984, Coach Hayes was a Paralympic athlete, and he had other Paralympic athletes here training, making it very visible. So they decided in 1989 to give the program its own budget, to be able to start some scholarships, and to be able to continue to grow what Coach Hayes had started.
Are there other adaptive sports being played at University of Texas beside basketball?
We have some adapted track and field athletes, some ambulatory runners and shot putters. We have had tennis. It's kind of one of those things where if you want the university to support it, you have to show there's a need. And so we also started an adapted athletics sport club, and we have that as an accommodation for students who want to come in and do other sports other than basketball. Part of what I see as my mission is to institutionalize those programs a little bit more with some growth and some support, because not everybody can or wants to play basketball. So how can we get more people, recruit more students with disabilities to our campus to grow some of our other programs?
And are you doing anything with or for youth with disability at all?
Well, I was commissioner of the NWBA junior division for 15 years. And as I moved into the college work, I just didn't have the time to give to it that that I thought somebody else might. So I passed that torch. But we do some things with the Dallas Junior program. We host a couple tournaments at our facility every year. Some of our players have gone to, and some of our interns have gone to their practices and helped them. So still trying to keep a finger in it. As you know, you can't do it all yourself. So you have to grow your army and try to get more people involved.
So you mentioned the Dallas program. I mean, I know that they have, incredible men and women's teams. What are they doing? I mean, how, and is it a pipeline, for you at the university?
Well, so as to what are they doing, they have some good leadership. They have a long history. They have some good infrastructure built into some of their programs as far as sponsorships and support that really helps. And there's a lot of passion for wheelchair basketball and adapted sports in general in the Metroplex. And so we've worked with UT Southwestern and started Adapted Sports Expo. There's wheelchair bowling, there's wheelchair golf, there's wheelchair tennis. There's a lot of people with a lot of history in adapted sports that really work together.
So there's this great support system. I mean, again, probably similar to Tucson. And so it becomes an area where adaptive athletes go and they get a lot of support and they're able to kind of lead full lives.
Absolutely.
What about your son? So he went to college, and what is he doing now?
So this is Tyler, our first son, and he graduated at UTA. He started the master's program here at UTA, like he enrolled in the master's program. When he got his master's degree in exercise science, he was able to be hired by the university as an advisor in a kinesiology department. And he started teaching a few classes adjunct and enrolled in the PhD program and just finished his PhD in exercise science. He's a full-time faculty now.
Wow. So Tyler, right? You said?
Yes.
So when he was growing up, did you treat him, any differently than you have other children as well?
He has a brother named Mike who was a state and regional level bowler.
Okay. Did you treat them any differently at all?
No, we knew, and Cheryl and Coach Vines were such a huge influence on this. We knew that he was going to have to be independent someday. And so it's a great question because it's difficult to find that line between supporting and enabling. But the fact that we had the Vines and the Rolling Razorbacks, that made it a lot easier for us as parents because, it's not something that there's a lot of, especially in the 80s and early 90s, that there's a lot of information about out on the market prior to the internet. So a good story, we used to take him from school and drive him to physical therapy at Children's Hospital 1 or 2 days a week, which is about an hour and a half or so. And he was in the waiting room once, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. And he said, I want that book. It was up on a table in the little reading room area. And I said, well, go get it. And the lady in the room looked at me like I was the meanest man in the world. And so he pushed a chair, he scooted on his rear and crawled and pushed a chair up to the table, climbed up into the chair. And it's hard to watch your kids struggle, but it's necessary. And he got up in the chair and started reading the book. And the lady said, my daughter would never have done that. And I said, well, he's going to kindergarten soon, and we're not going to be there to help him at school.
So he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he's been incredibly successful. I mean, getting his doctorate. Good for him. Good for him.
He's put in the time. Yes, definitely.
Good for him. Um, the last time I saw you in person was at Venice Beach for the Dave Kiley 3-on-3. And to me, it's not only showcasing, these incredible athletes, whether they're recreational or elite, but it's also creating a lot more awareness about, the capabilities of people. How do we create, more awareness, just, in general, and create more inclusion as well?
Well, I think it's changed a lot since I got involved in 92, but slowly. And we have developed a huge network of great people who are involved in adapted sports. A lot of them are volunteers,
Yeah.
and they're limited in time. A lot of them are parents who sometimes step out when their child graduates. But I think we're starting to see more rehab centers and rehab hospitals become more involved. I heard a statistic that 80 something percent of rehab doctors knew the value of sports in health for people with disabilities, but only 40% were giving that information out to their clients. So I think getting more professionals, medical professionals involved is a huge key. I think the work we're doing at the college division kind of, the more we can get that information out, the more we can reach those moms and dads and school teachers who are going to see the value and refer their students and their clients to adapted sports.
Now, the Paralympics, I know, are becoming much more watched. More people are interested. But what would you hope to see, 10 years down the road in terms of adaptive sports and opportunities for people to play?
Well, for one, we're seeing a big cultural shift in our whole society. And we're seeing marketing to the specific market of people with disabilities. Toyota's done a great job of making adapted sports and mobility awareness out there. Target advertising and using people with disabilities in their advertising. I think on the West Coast and in the television movie industry, we're seeing a huge wave of people with disabilities who are saying, hey, we can act too. I know I heard the story when Glee came out, they looked 2 or 3 years for a young person in a wheelchair to play that role, and they just couldn't find anybody. And I think now we're seeing more of that. So awareness is starting to grow. I think we could use a little bit more on the compliance side as far as enforcing some of the laws that are out there. And I know that's difficult, and everything can't be just because of compliance, but I think that's something that's helped fuel the growth a little bit. So I think it's going to be one of those things that's this huge palette of potential out there, and more people are becoming supportive of that. And it's unfortunately, if you look at diffusion theory, the first thing that you have to have is your early adopters, and in your early adopters you have to have people who are passionate. If you look at the growth of Special Olympics, that caught on very quickly, and they had some very they had support from some very connected people.
Yeah. Yeah. When you, when your athletes, push into the gym, and you're conducting your drills and such, I mean, do you do you actually see people with a disability, or is it more, here are these athletes kind of thing?
Yeah, to me, because um, I've been involved for so long, I see athletes. The only time I see disability or the chair is how does the chair affect function, and what can we do um, to support function and enhance function through the equipment of the sports.
And as we get close to the end here, what do you say to, to youth maybe who, use a chair for mobility, uh, maybe they have a prosthetic. I mean, how would you encourage them, to kind of participate and get out there?
Um, Mostly, I think people see it um, first from the transition mode, transitioning into adulthood, and exercise, physical activity, and getting out of the house and becoming part of society are part of that process. So I think that even if they're never elite level high performance athletes, um, broaden your social networks, broaden your participation in society, be a role model for others with disabilities so that when the mom and dad down the street sees you out getting your miles in, they can say, hey, tell me about this. So it's not just about high performance, it's about the whole package of participating in our society.
Very good. Well, Doug, thank you so much. I've appreciated spending some time with you, and all the best.
Absolutely.
All the
Absolutely.
best.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Go Mavs.
Thank you. Thank you.